Welcome, everybody, on this beautiful Saturday to our special I Love Yarn Day class. My name is Claire. I'm going to be hanging out in the chat with you, answering your questions or passing them on to Darren as needed. Darren is your teacher there on screen, showing off the beautiful, crazy pillow he's made with all the fringe and different techniques. And so we're going to get through as much of that as we can today. So I will go ahead and pass this over to Darren.
All right, welcome to class. Today, we are going to do tapestry weaving. We're going to cover a lot of information. We're certainly not going to cover everything that's involved in tapestry weaving. There's a lot of information. You could probably research and practice and study this for as long as you want and still never reach the end of it. Weaving, there are so many different stitches, techniques, but today we're going to get everyone started. I'm going to show you how to make some looms. We're going to do some stitches. And I want to encourage you to ask as many questions as you have, because just to make sure that I'm explaining things clearly. If you can't quite see what I'm doing on the camera, let me know and I'll try to get a better angle. So all that being said, let's go ahead and switch to the view of my hands and we will get started. So some of the yarns I'm going to be using today, I'm going to be using Wool Ease. Thick and quick. It works up really fast. It's really soft. It has a great texture. Comes in a lot of great colors. It's available on lionbrands.com and on michaels.com. I'm going to be using Heartland and also available on lionbrand.com or michaels.com. And this yarn, almost all the colors have this really nice feathered look. So they work up in a nice, sophisticated way to make like a scarf or a hat or sweaters. It works up really great. I'm going to be using some of this cotton yarn for the warp 24/7. And this one also is on lionbrand.com and michaels.com. It comes in a lot of great colors and selection. And then the last one, I'm using Hometown Bonus Bundle. And again, you can get this one online, michaels.com, lionbrand.com, and the selection on all of these yarns, the color choices are incredible. So that's what I'm going to be using. Let's talk a little bit about how you can make your own loom. Looms are not cheap. You can buy looms. There's a lot of different price ranges available for tapestry looms. They probably run anywhere from like $25 to $30 upwards to maybe $100 or more. So there is somewhat of an investment involved in it. So, whenever I start a new project or learning a new hobby, I don't always want to have to spend a lot of money before I even give it a try. So this is just like a super basic, like a really simple, just like little loom. All it is just I took a piece of cardboard, I measured out 1/2 inch marks, and I just cut little slits in it. And then I just wrapped it in with yarn, a cotton yarn, but not stretchy. And then to kind of make it a little bit tighter, because this is not really a very good setup, I just kind of tightened it up in the back like that to just kind of secure it. So if you're just wanting to give it a try, I hesitate to show something so simple because this it's not easy to work on, so it doesn't give you a good feeling of what weaving is really like. But you could make like coasters, you could make like squares or rectangles and then sew them together and make a blanket or any type of project. But something like this will get you started with very little effort and like no money, like no expense. Now another way to make cardboard loom, and this one is a little nicer. What you're going to need are 3 pieces of cardboard. You can cut these as big or as small as you want. Don't make them too small. It's nice to have a loom that is big enough to make some larger pieces on. When you cut your cardboard, though, what you want to look for is you want the corrugated center. See, this one is going up and down. And then this one, the corrugated center is going sideways. And this one, it's going up and down again. So varying the way the cardboard is corrugated will make it stronger. So you can see it kind of bends easy, but if we put this one on, this one is going up and down, it doesn't bend as easy. So we got going sideways and then up and down. So it's going to hold its shape a little better. Just get your first piece of cardboard, cover it really thick with some type of wood glue or craft glue. Just squirt a bunch on and just spread it out with a paintbrush. Put your next board or piece of cardboard down. Do the same, cover the whole thing with a nice strong wood glue or craft glue. Make sure you're getting all the edges, and then put the last piece down. And you might want to, if you have some clamps, you could kind of clamp them together while they're drying. And then you want to get either 3 or 4 cardboard strips like this. And you want these to be the same, just as wide as your loom is. And we're going to glue all of these down to make a raised edge. And then you want 4 more for the bottom. So we're going to do a raised edge on the top and on the bottom. So it'd be like that. You glue them in place. And again, if you have some clamps, you might want to clamp them. And then the last piece of cardboard that we're going to use, we're going to reveal that corrugated center. And you can use like a tapestry needle to kind of help peel that away. But we want to.
Hey, Darren.
Yes.
Can you move your computer a little closer? When you look
All right.
down, we're losing your sound. Thank
Let me
you.
bring it closer. Okay. So we want to remove this outer layer to reveal that corrugated center. And then we're going to, once you get it like this, we're going to glue that in place. And that is going to, we're going to use that as a guide for our yarn. And the yarn that we are going to weave into is called the warp. So we're going to put vertical strands of yarn up and down, and that's going to be called the warp. And they will rest in these, and that'll help keep them spaced out nicely. And it will help to keep them from sliding around while you're weaving. And that's pretty much the end of like making the loom. You just have to make it like the day before. You can put books on it or clamp it so that it stays together really nice. Let it dry maybe 1 day or 2 days until it's good and dry. And then surprisingly, these looms are actually pretty strong. And you, depending on how big you make your loom, you can do a lot on these looms. You can, I mean, this is a proper tapestry loom at this point. So, you know, you can feel good about it. You can feel like you have a great opportunity to make some nice projects. Any questions so far about like how to make the loom or how to, any questions about that, anything at all?
I did put the handout for a little guide on how to make your loom, and then the handout with some just basic weaving directions in the chat. And I'll put those in a couple more times over the course of class, so you can all grab those when you need them.
And I certainly did not invent making looms like this. There are lots of videos on YouTube. So if you go on YouTube and search, how do I make a tapestry loom out of cardboard? There'll be like more in-depth videos, but we only have so much time, so I'm going pretty fast. I do realize that. But this one is finished and it's all glued together. So the next step would be, it's called warping the loom. And I'm going to use this orange. This is the 24/7 cotton. I'm using an orange. And you can see it's not stretchy at all. Like I really can't stretch it. And it's important that you use a yarn or a string when you're first learning. So everything I'm telling you today is like for beginners. If you're very experienced at weaving, then you can break the rules and you kind of know what rules you can break and where you can bend them. But as a beginner, you want to use a cotton yarn is a good choice, but something that's not stretchy at all. You'd be surprised how stretchy acrylic and wool can be. If it stretches and you put it around your loom too tight, then when you cut your weaving off of your loom, then the yarn will release back to its original state, and it can cause your weaving to either warp or like distort and not be shaped maybe the way you wanted it to be shaped. So you want to make sure you're not using a stretchy yarn. And what I'm going to do, and here's another thing, you don't have to warp the whole thing. So if you want to do a weaving, you don't have to do the whole thing. You can just do, if you want to do something narrow, you can just do like 5 or 6 inches, and that's all you need to do if that's as big of a project as you want. So I'm going to turn this over. And to start it, nothing fancy. All I'm going to do is just kind of tie a square knot. Just kind of whatever knot you want to tie, doesn't matter. This will be discarded later. So you're just going to secure it and just tie it in a knot. And then you want to get it settled in these ridges so that it's holding it nice. And then you just want to guide it through each one of those. And then I'm just wrapping it around, and I will show you what that looks like after I do a few. So all I'm doing is just wrapping, I'm guiding it into that groove, or that dent is one thing it could be called. And then I'm putting it in the next one on the bottom. I'm taking it all the way around the back. For this type of a loom, this is the way you can weave it. And I have a store-bought loom I'll show you at the end of class, and I'll talk about how that one is different. But this is all you do to weave, to set the warp. You can see here's the back, and I'm wrapping it around. So there's nothing fancy happening on the back. And all I am doing is just wrapping it. And you want it to be, you don't want them to be loose, but you don't want them to be super tight. You want them to have some play in them. And at this point, it's better to have them a little loose, because we're going to do a few little things to help tighten them up later, and also to help even them out. So, as long as you can kind of go like this and see if you feel one that's really loose, because they're all connected in one string, you can kind of even the tension out a little bit. So you don't want them really loose, but you don't want them super tight either. Like, you don't want to be pulling them and stretching them like that. You just want them, how would you describe it, Claire? Like, what's the best way?
I mean, it sounds like you're a little bit like, what is it, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, where it's got to be just right.
Well, it doesn't have to be. It's not that specific, though. Like, it doesn't have to be exactly, there's like too loose, and then there's too tight, and then the middle ground, there's a lot of room you can kind of play with. So it's not, I don't want it to make it sound like it has to be super precise, but you just you want it to be a nice balance.
Yeah. The way I was taught, not for exactly taught, T-A-U-T is a good word.
Okay.
And the way I was taught in school is you sort of like bounce your hand on the warp, and that helps you feel out if any, this was maybe more for like a floor loom, where any individual threads were a little bit tighter or looser, but you just want a nice bounce in it.
Yeah, that's why I kind of go like this, to kind of, if sometimes you can feel if one's really loose. And if you're just like doing this, because they are all connected, it's one string, that kind of helps to even the tension out a little bit, I think, too, because it can do that. So any questions about how to warp the yarn or the loom, or what a good choice of yarn or string would be? Any questions about the warping or the choice of the warp? And then when you're finished, I'll just tie this off just like I did in the front, or when I started. I'll just cut it and then tie it off and just make it secure. Like, no special knot, just whatever like a good secure knot would be. No question?
Sorry, Darren, we couldn't hear whatever you were saying then.
Are there any questions before I move on?
Yes, we do have a couple questions here. ER wants to know, you mentioned some numbers for the yarn. That might have been like the thickness of the yarn in terms of like hand knitting or crochet thickness.
This one, the Heartland, is a number 4, which is worsted, and it's kind of a medium. It's not real thick or real thin. And then the other one that I'm using, all of the other ones are a number 6. And you can see they're quite a bit thicker. But for weaving, you can use anything. You can use thread, you can use anything. But just for class today, this is what I chose. These are nice yarns to teach with, because they're thick and they show up nice. Any other questions about the yarn, or?
Yeah, a couple questions that I think we can relate to each other. Oh, 24/7, that's the name of the cotton yarn that we were
Oh, yes.
using. It's called 24/7 cotton because you can use it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah,
See,
that's
we
the
were
name of the
clever there.
yarn. And this is a number 4 weight yarn as well. So,
And then Elaine wanted to know, will the warp show on the finished project?
well, that's your choice. If the warp shows on your finished project, so let me show on this one. So you can see here where this white is, and you can see the warp showing through. That is called a warp facing weaving. So you can have a warp facing weaving where you do see the warp, or you can have one that the warp does not show. What is it? Is it called? I don't even know what it's called if the warp doesn't show. What is that called? Is it
Then it's
warp not
called
facing?
weft faced. Yep.
Weft facing. Okay. So this is weft facing, and this one you can't see as much because the colors aren't as drastic, but here this is a warp facing. So it depends on what you want your finished project to look like. Um, if if you were to use a nice thick yarn as the warp or the same size yarn as the warp and the weft, it's more likely to show up. Um, and also it depends on how tight you make your weaving. That can close up those little gaps and close up the weft so that, or the warp so that it doesn't show, or close up the weft so the warp doesn't show. Does that make sense? It might make more sense once we get going.
Yeah, it might be easier to show the difference once we start weaving a little
But
bit.
that's what they look like. So sometimes it will show. And if you think about plaid fabric, what kind of creates those stripes and checkers, you see vertical and horizontal stripes. That's how that works because you can see, right, Claire? Is that a good example?
Yeah, that's a good example. Or like the buffalo check plaid too, those bigger
Yeah,
blocks.
yeah. Otherwise, it would just be like horizontal stripes, but because the warp also shows is why you get the vertical and horizontal stripes. All right, so when you're starting your weaving, and I'll just kind of show you this, and I'll show you how to do it. You want to, on the bottom of your loom, I like to use these cardboard pieces as spacers. You can use really, really thick yarn or rope as a spacer. And what that does is that kind of balances the tension of your warp. It helps to space everything out nice. And it forces you to kind of save some room at the bottom and at the top for finishing, because you don't want to work clear down to the edge or else you won't have any room for finishing. So it forces you to save a little extra space, and it also um, helps to balance out the warp so that it's not as, and if it's super loose at this point, then you can tighten it up by using these spacers. That can kind of help tighten it up a little bit. And then if it gets more tight while you're weaving, you could pull one of those out and kind of release the tension. So you can kind of help control the tension by using these spacers. And you'd want them along the top and the bottom. So on this loom, I have 2 on the bottom, and I have these 2 on the top. So, and it's just, you can also use, if you want to get fancier, you can buy these, you can buy wooden ones. And this can also be used as a pickup stick or as a spacer. So, and to insert them, all you want to do is just use this basic weave. Let's see if I can get the camera in the right place. And you're just going to go over, under, over, under. So every other one for this basic weave, you're just going over and under. And this is called a basic weave, a tabby weave, or a plain weave. I like tabby weave. I don't know. I like cats. It reminds me of a tabby cat. I don't know why they call it tabby, but that's what they call it. And then for the second one, you want to do the opposite. So with the first one, I went over. So with this one, I'm going to go under. So you're going under, over, and you're doing it the opposite way. And once you start doing it, you'll see it really kind of locks them into place. And you can kind of use your finger just to push it down. So sometimes I just do it that way. So this one, push it down. And this is a basic basic weave or a tabby weave. And then you just bring these down to the bottom of your loom. And then you also want to set 2 of them at the top of your loom. And this is kind of a best practice to do this. You don't have to do it, but I do recommend it because it does kind of help you out in the long run. Do you do stuff like this, Claire, or do you just go straight on?
No, I do like to put in the header like that, and sometimes you can buy like actual, fancy little wooden sticks to put in there. But if your loom is narrow enough, I know people will also use like those paint stirrer sticks you can get at a home improvement store.
That would be good. That would work out really nice. Some of my, I'll admit, I don't always follow the rules, and some of my larger weavings, I didn't do this, and you know what, it worked out fine. So, but this is best practice, and I do recommend doing this as you're learning, and then again, once you learn the rules, then you can kind of learn where you can kind of have some wiggle room. So, any questions about the spacers or how to insert them in the basic weave? Just kind of push them to the bottom. And that's actually the top of this one. When I brought my computer closer, it crowded my space. Let's see if this will work. So I'm going to demonstrate these stitches, but starting out your weaving, I like to do...
I think you're going to have to talk louder.
Oh, sorry, this is really a problem today. Okay, so starting out, I like to do this stitch, which is called twining. And the reason I like to do this at the beginning is it's a very secure stitch, and it's going to give a great foundation for your weaving. And then do a couple of rows of the basic tabby weave, and then finish it off with another row of this twining. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. And what this will give you, it will give you a very, very secure edge. You could just do this with plain yarn. You wouldn't have to do anything decorative. And I'll demonstrate this at the end too. You can use this, you can fold this under and sew it down to create a very, very strong selvage edge. And if you're going to use this as a rug or something that's going to get a lot of use, wear and tear, it will help to give you a very, very secure edge. So if you're making a wall hanging or something that's not going to be used very much, you might not have to do this. But if you're going to, I'd like to show this because this does give you a very, very nice edge, and it's very secure to make something. Okay, and now I'm going to demonstrate how to do these, and then I'll talk about this fun loopy stitch. Notes to make sure I'm not skipping anything. Let's just quickly go over some of the tools that we need. You're going to need a comb, and you can just use a regular comb. If you don't have a comb handy, you can use a fork, or you can use a weaver's comb, and I just had it here and now I can't find it. But it's a wooden comb that's made especially for weaving. I'll probably turn up here in a minute. But you just need something, and that's going to help you kind of guide the yarn into place. But I always like to show options of things you can just use around the house that you have, because you don't really have to buy a lot of stuff. You can make do with what you already have. So let's go ahead and get started with our weaving. So I'm going to use this spacer that I put in the top, and I'm actually going to use it as a pickup stick. And what that does is, because it's woven up and down, up and down, up and down, if I turn it like this, so I'm turning it sideways, and what that does is because it's like an inch or so wide, it opens up my warp, and it creates a space that you can go through, and that's called a shed. So that little opening, that space that you're going to go through, is called a shed. And so this could be called a shed stick or a pickup stick. And then that's how I'm going to weave. And you want to use a tapestry needle, a large-eyed blunt needle. You don't want them to be sharp. You want them to have a large enough eye for yarn. I like these. I have these upholstery needles. And they're long. The reason I like these is because I can go all the way across and it makes it very easy. The problem with these though is they are sharp. So you can cut your, I mean, I have stabbed my fingers with them and cut my finger, but sometimes you'll pick up, instead of going under the warp, you'll kind of go through it, and that's really going to cause problems. Just make sure if you're using a sharp needle that you're not piercing your warp. Okay, so let me get started. And this is just the basic tabby weave. Basic tabby weave we're going to do. So just thread your, and if you have any questions along the way, please let me know. So just thread the needle. And I'm going to cut off just a small section.
The darning needles or the upholstery needles, are they sized? Like, do they have a size number?
You know, I don't know. I just kind of found these at a shop. These are doll making needles, and these are a #2 long doll needle. They're not nearly as long, but they are a nice long needle. You know, but these, like this one is a lot thicker than, it's a little thicker than this one. They do come in different sizes, but I really can't speak to that because I just kind of found these and just really like them. So do you know if they come in different sizes, Claire? They do, but I mean, I don't know how they're gauged.
Yeah, I don't know how they're gauged. I would say probably the most important factor in picking a needle is making sure that you can fit your yarn through the eye of the needle.
Yeah.
Because you're not,
And
the needles isn't sizing like you're weaving or anything like that, like it
no,
would with knitting or crochet.
no. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. So the size of the needle that you're using, and you don't even have to use a needle. I'll show you some other options later, but the size of the needle doesn't make any difference. The length of the needle can make it some, I think it's easier. You might not like it. So it's worth a try, or maybe, you know, maybe not. But yeah, that's not going to affect the finished product. So once you've opened your shed, all you have to do then is just pass your needle through your shed. And I'm going to take it all the way across, but you don't have to take it all the way across. You could just go part of the way and back. I'm just going to go all the way across just for the sake of argument. So you go all the way across. You do want to leave a bit of a tail on the end so that you'll be able to use that for finishing later. And you go all the way across, and then you can either take your shed stick and push it down. And this is where you can decide if you want the warp to show or not. If you push it down really hard and very tight, then the warp will not show. So this is where you could either use your comb or your fork. And that is the basic weave. And then going back, you have to do it by hand. And so you want to do it the opposite. So I'm going to go over and under the opposite way. And that's what will lock your stitches into place. And it kind of creates the fabric. So instead of just loose strands of yarn, it makes it into a solid piece. And so you just go across, being careful not to skip any. And you can kind of watch the row that you already finished to make sure that everything's going right on that row. Now here's a little tricky part, and I still have trouble with this. You have to be very careful. So you think that the yarn is just going straight across and everything's fine, but the yarn is not really going straight across. It's going up and down, up and down, up and down between all of those little strands of the warp. And that does add a little bit to how long your yarn needs to be. So you want to make sure you're not doing it too short. So you want to kind of hold it like this. You don't want, see, this is what happens sometimes. If you pull it tight, you get this indentation, and it can make your weaving shaped like an hourglass. So you probably don't want that. And it's not, I mean, it does happen to everyone sometimes. So make sure, so sometimes I'll even hold my weaving out. You can either do it on a diagonal, or you can kind of, seen people kind of do that to just give you, so the shortest way across is a straight line. So we don't want a straight line. We want to give ourselves a little extra slack. And then we're going to push it down. And if there's any, like if there's too much slack, we can kind of pull that slack out a little bit. And then I like to go on both sides sometimes and just kind of give it a little, and that'll kind of even out your tension. So you don't have to do all of these things necessarily, but you just want to make sure you're not pulling it too tight. So do you have any tricks about not pulling it too tight? Claire, how do you manage it?
I usually do like you did, sort of lay the yarn at like a 45-degree angle in the shed there, and then pinch the sort of folded end opposite from where you're pulling the yarn through. And if you just pinch it gently, that'll sort of lock that piece in place.
Yeah, I have struggled with that, so I really kind of fuss over it probably more than I need to. So
It
now
does
for the,
take some practice to get the tension just right, and then
it
not to
takes,
accidentally like yank too hard on one.
and sometimes it looks fine and you don't realize it. And each time you're doing it, it might be just like a 1/16 of an inch, but then after you've done like 10 rows, you can start to see it. It's frustrating. So now I'm going to open my shed up again. To open my shed, I'm going to use my big needle. I like this long needle because look, I can go all the way across and it makes it so much easier. Just don't stab anyone. Make sure your cat's not sitting over there. Okay. And then I'm going to use this to pound it down. Just kind of make sure I didn't pull it too tight. And then I'm going to go back across. And this is just the basic weave, the plain weave or the tabby weave. And it's actually very pretty. You can certainly do a whole project just like this. You could do all one color and make, and at that point, basically you've got a piece of fabric. You could make that fabric into a pillow, into a bag, into a, you could still use it as a patch to sew on something else. You can sew a bunch of them together, make a blanket. So anything you can think of that you can do with a piece of fabric about this size is what you could do with it. You could make stripes, you could do a plaid, pretty much anything you want. So any questions about this tabby weave or how to manage it or how to do it? Any question about the shed stick or opening the shed?
I think we're ready to move on to some fun and different stitches.
Okay. So this is one of my favorites. I do this one a lot. Let me see if there's a better example. So this one, this red and white together, this is called twining. So it's like the word twine, it's because it's kind of wrapped around, and twine is made by kind of twisting. And you can see here this green and white. It makes a very pretty decorative look, and it's very strong. So it works great on edges, and it can help give like strength to your weaving. And another thing I've noticed, if I've done a lot of weaving and I've kind of pulled them loose or tight, or maybe I got off, you think it's super easy to go up and down, and then reverse on the way back. But sometimes it's easy to get off track, and you might not want to rip everything out, and maybe it looks okay. So if you do a row of this twining, it kind of reestablishes your warp into a nice position, and it gives you an opportunity to kind of start again. And if you've made a mistake and you don't want to rip it out. So I'm going to use two colors, and you don't have to tie it in a knot to start, but I like to tie it in a knot, and I'll untie that later. But it just kind of secures things for me. And I'm using the Wool Ease Thick and Quick for this one. I think I'm going to shorten this a bit. And so what you do to start is you just put your yarn in. So I have my white yarn going under my first warp, and I have the red yarn going on top of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the red one over my first warp and then under the second one. And then the white one is going to go over the second one and then under the third one. And you can see it creates that twist. And you want to keep, so keep the white one here, keep the white one up. And then the red one is going to go over the white one and then under the warp and back up. And then you'll keep the red one up. And then the white one is going to go over the red one and then under that next warp. So basically you're twisting this so that the warp is going to be, see how the warp is kind of trapped in between the two of them. So it's wrapping around the warp. And it makes, if you do it in two colors like this, it makes a very nice kind of a twisted look. But you want to make sure, so like keep the white one up. The red one is going to cross over the white one and then under the warp. So the white one is over top of the next warp. The red one crosses over the white one and then under that warp. And now it's on top. And the white one will go over the red one and under the warp. Is that making sense? I don't know if you're able to see what I'm doing clearly enough.
We have a question on the length of the yarn that you're using since you cut individual pieces. Are they just a little bit longer than the full width of the loom, or how much longer?
Well, the thing is, you want to make sure you're using yarn, the length of yarn that you can manage and work with comfortably. So you can, use a lot of yarn if you're able to manage it and keep track of it. So that's why I measured this out and then I cut it a little bit shorter because I wanted it to be easier for demonstrating. If you go all the way across, if I were going to measure it out, I would probably measure, so that's the length of my loom. So that's going across once, and then maybe a fourth, and that I would probably count that as a whole cross because it takes a little bit more than just the length of it. I'm sure there's a mathematical equation you could do to figure it out. You could weave a couple of rows and then take it out and measure it and see exactly how much you might need. But I just kind of go across and then give it a little extra. Maybe go across 5 times to measure it and then just give it an extra 6th time just for a little bit extra. Is there a way that you do it, Claire?
I don't do this particular technique a lot, but I would just say, obviously, you don't want your piece of yarn to be any shorter than the width of your loom. So maybe like the full width plus another, like Darren said, like 25% or so, maybe 50% if you're really paranoid.
I mean, unless if you're just going across, like again, you don't have to go all the way across. I could stop this right here and then go back and then do something else over here. So it just depends on what you're doing.
True, because we are doing tapestry weaving, so we can make little sort of islands of one stitch, and they don't all have to go all the way across.
So is everyone able to see? I'm never sure how it's showing up on camera. I just messed up here.
Yeah, it's looking like a very pretty candy cane.
Okay, and you're able to see it. I'm messing up here. Any questions about that? I really like this one. And you can see I'm not really putting it in place. This one, you might want to, as you're making it, let it kind of go up and down like this, because as we talked, you don't want it to go straight across because you want to save yourself that extra room. And so when I'm doing these, I will let them, I don't like keep it straight. So you can kind of, and then you can, after you're finished, push it into place, or you could kind of make zigzags like this, and then fill this in with a different color and fill this in with a different color. So that's how I accomplished it on this pillow. I don't know if I can get my pillow under the camera. That's how I accomplished these edges here. So, any questions about the twining?
A good general question from Emma. If you change to a different color or stitch, how would you secure the yarn ends?
Do you want to talk about that? You do it different than I do, Claire. How do you do it?
I tend to do more weaving on like a rigid heddle loom, so I'm making like a piece of fabric. But when I do that, you want to leave, just like in sort of knitting and crochet, leave yourself like a 5 or 6 inch tail. And then I will do like one pass with the new yarn. And then on the next pass with the open shed, tuck that little tail in, loop it around the very outside edge, pull it into your fabric, and then like push it through to the back. And that way it's secured. And then once you pull the piece off the loom and do your finishing, you can trim that end afterwards. So I try to do it as I go rather than leaving them all to hang to do when you're done.
I leave them all to hang until I'm done. Usually, I find, especially if I'm not sure, like if I maybe want to take this out, if I've already woven in all my ends, then I find it hard to take out. But one way I like to do it is using a tapestry needle. Sometimes I will, instead of like weaving it in like this and kind of trying, it's not, sometimes you can't really hide it. And that might, because you're not taking it all the way across, sometimes I get caught up when I'm come back because I feel like my weave is off. So another way to do it, the way I like to do it, is the way Claire does it is technically the correct way. I'll point that out. But the way I like to do it is I will kind of hide them, do it from the back, and I kind of follow my warp thread and just kind of hide it inside. So that way it's completely hidden kind of inside of the warp. And then kind of go back up over the next one. You want to make sure you're hiding it so that it's not going to show. So sometimes I'll do it like that and then cut it off, bring it to the back. And I feel like that hides it really nice and it doesn't interfere with what I'm seeing when I'm weaving. And then you can cut that off. Have you ever done that, Claire, or is that completely out of your?
I have had to do it after the fact when I forget to do it right away. Sometimes
Yeah.
you're just so in the zone that you keep on going and then, whoops, I forgot to tuck that tail in.
This little scrap that I'm going to use for demonstrating later. This is the back of it. You can also, if you wait till you're done, you can just kind of weave those ends in the back. So you can kind of take them, like making sure you're not doing it on the front. You could kind of go up and down kind of through those stitches and just kind of hide them on the back. Then double check the front to make sure it's not showing. So you just want to weave them in carefully, and you want to, it is tedious, but you just want to take your time and make sure you're doing it right and doing it careful. You want them to be secure, but you don't want them to show on the front. That's your two goals with that. Does that help? Any more questions about that? Or did that help at all? Or maybe little?
I think that helped.
Okay. So this is called twining. See, I messed up right there, but that's fine. I don't mind if I have little mistakes in mine. Some people really, it just depends on what I'm making too. So that is the twining, and that it does, you can see it really spaces out your warp really nice. It can help with the tension. So if you get off track and if you're having trouble with your tension, you can do a row of that to kind of help kind of balance things out and kind of reestablish a good tension in your warp. So now let's do some great big loops.
I was just going to say, we did have a couple people interested in how you make those big fluffy loops. So, all right.
And then I'm going to do one more stitch after that, and then we'll move to finishing because we do have to do some finishing. So what you want to do is you want to open up your shed and you want to do technically, and again, this depends on what you're making. You want to make sure when you're starting these loops that you have what's under it should be very secure. So like I have a couple of rows of tabby, and then I have this twining. So this is a very secure, nice edge. So if you had something that was really loose or really fluffy or something here, you would want to do a couple of rows of tabby to kind of tighten things up a little bit. So when you're doing these loops, you do want to make sure that you have a nice solid kind of an edge to work into. Leave yourself plenty of slack. And then you're going to get, and you can use anything you want. I used this great big size 50 knitting needle, which you could use like a chopstick or a any size knitting needle, a broomstick, a dowel rod, anything that's kind of round that's like manageable in your hand that it's going to be easy to use to get the different size that you want. So you just loosely put in a one row of tabby, and then you're just going to reach under and just pick up. So you're just going to pick up a row. So what I'm doing is I'm going in between each one of these and picking those up and putting them on my needle. And this is very easy. It gives you a very dramatic look though. So, but you just want to make sure you have enough yarn. I didn't leave myself enough on that other end, I don't think. This big needle takes a lot though. So you probably wouldn't necessarily use a big needle like this. You might. But it's still going over one warp and under one. No, I'm not changing the. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of run out. So let's just take it that far over. And then you leave that in place. And then you want to do 2 or 3 rows of the traditional, it's easiest to just go ahead and do tabby weave. So you want to do at least 2 or 3 rows of the tabby weave. I mean, you could do another row of twining, but that's a lot to go through for something that's not going to be shown. I mean, it's going to be buried underneath. So 2 or 3 rows of a nice tabby will hold everything secure. And then just pull that through. When you're doing this, you'll have more space on your desk than I do on mine. I'm kind of trying to squeeze everything under this camera. And again, you want to make sure you're not pulling your edges in. Always, every time you go through, make sure you're not pulling your edges in. Every now and then give them a little snug. Bring this down and lock everything in nice and tight. And I would come back with at least 1 or 2 more rows of tabby weave to secure it, but I'm not going to do that just because we don't have a lot of time. So then you take that out, and now you have these beautiful loops. Look how easy that was. This looks very dramatic. I bet you thought it was going to be really hard, right? Really some kind of a very tricky thing. But as you can see though, like this nice decorative twining we did is going to be lost. So you want to make sure you're placing these in the right place so that you're not going to overshadow something else that maybe you did. And so in this one, I only took it, I didn't have enough yarn to go all the way across, but that's fine because if you're making some kind of a design, maybe you don't want it to go all the way across. So you can just, and sometimes when I'm weaving, if that happens, I just leave it and just work from there. If I didn't have some specific plan, then you can just kind of go from there. So that is, it's called a loop a loop pile, like a nice thick pile of a rug, like a nice thick plush rug. And you can cut these with a scissor and then have a cut loop pile. So you can go through and cut these. And you can see that gives it a different look. But especially for cutting them, I probably would definitely go through with another 2 or 3 rows of the tabby to really hold them in place. Any questions? So this is like 2 stitches in 1 because you can really change it. And look how much different that looks than these with the loops. It actually does look quite a bit different.
It's such a fun texture. It adds a lot of visual impact.
Here's another quickly. If you bring, it's another way, if you just want to add like a couple loops or a couple like of loose pile, just in here and there, you can just go under one of your warps and then wrap it around the warp on each side of that one and then bring them back to the front. So you've got 3 warps involved. And now I've got a nice like long tassel or a fringe. You can just kind of push that in place. How do you like that? Any questions about anything we've covered so far?
I think we're doing good.
There are no more questions. I have one more stitch that I want to show you. It's called Sumac. And I like to use, this is roving. I bought this either to felt with or to spin into yarn, but it's a very dramatic look on a weaving. Now this is very delicate. So if this is a wall hanging, then you're fine, but I certainly wouldn't do this on a rug or a blanket or a scarf. Anything that's going to get anywhere at all, it'll just get ruined very fast. But for a wall hanging, it's perfect. So you're going to go, I'm going to move. I always start this way and go across. I think because when you knit and you need read knitting charts, that's kind of how you move. But you don't have to. You can go back and forth. You can start on this side. I just do it like this. So it's just the way I do it. So I'm going to go under my warp and I'm going to move this direction. And then I'm going to go back and go over that same warp and then under it again. So I'm kind of wrapping it around that warp. And you can pull it tight, but I like to let it be fluffy. And so now I'm going over the next warp. I'm going to go over it, but then I'm going to change my mind and go back under it. And then I'm going to go back over it again. So you're just wrapping it. So you're going over, under, and then back over. So you're just kind of twisting it around. And just remember, if you're moving to the left, you're going to be wrapping it kind of back to the right. You're kind of, it's like two steps forward, 1 step back kind of a situation. And I think it looks really pretty. Do you like this stitch, Claire? Do you ever do this one?
I don't think I've done it in a while, but it is very pretty and very fun to go fast with that big fat roving.
Yeah, and you can do this with thin yarn too, but you just get such a dramatic effect. Any question? Are you able to see how I'm doing it? Any questions? I wrapped the same one twice, so I don't want to wrap the same one twice. And again, this, if you're using big thick roving like this, it does kind of overshadow anything that's around it. So like these big loops and this sumac kind of next to each other work out nice because they can, oh, here's one thing I'm kind of doing wrong. Not necessarily wrong, but if you're using really, really thick roving like this, I just got this one little piece, so it's fine. But if I were going to do a large section, because this is such a thick yarn and it takes up so much space, if I were doing a large section, I wouldn't want to do every warp because it can crowd everything and kind of push everything out. And then instead of going in, your weaving can kind of bulge out and it can distort the shape. So you can do, and this is something you'll have to figure out depending on how thick your yarn is. You can do every 3rd one, every 4th one, or something like that so that you don't overcrowd your stitches. But if you're just doing a little little piece like that, it doesn't really matter. So any questions about that? And then you can take that all the way across and then back again. If you take that all the way across and then back again, it kind of looks like a braid. See how that kind of looks like a braid right there? And that's 2 rows of it. And here are 2 rows right in a row, or just kind of 1.5. But I like how it looks if you do 2 together. It almost looks like a knit stitch or like a braid. So I think that's cute.
Question from Elaine. On this one, are you only wrapping the top warp? Like, do we have the shed separated, or is everything laying flat?
No, with this one, you're not using, everything's laying flat. And then you're just wrapping whichever warp you want. So if I were using a small yarn, or like if I were using a yarn this size, I would wrap every warp probably. But if you're using some kind of crazy great big warp like or yarn or roving like this, you could even use this. See how this is like a whole great big piece. Like if I were using this, I might only wrap like I might skip 5 or 10 even. You kind of have to do it a couple times and see how much room it's actually taking up. And it depends on how tight. See, if I were to pull this really tight, it takes all the air out of it and it doesn't take up much room. But if I want it to be fluffy, then it takes up a lot more room. So I would skip more. So it just depends on how big your yarn is, how tight you're pulling it, and then how you want it to look. So it's just, I mean, these are kind of things you can kind of figure out as you're going once you get the stitch down. But the most important thing is to kind of get the stitch down. So you're just wrapping it, moving to the next one, wrapping
you're
it.
off screen right now, Darren.
Oh, sorry. I'm trying to stay in close so that you can see what I'm doing. It's kind of, so just wrap it and move to the next one and wrap it. And with this roving, I just kind of tuck it under. I don't really weave in the ends on that. I just use it as much as I need, then tuck it under. And just kind of wrap it around. And it kind of stays because it's so fuzzy, it kind of fuzzes against itself. Okay. Any other questions about anything we've covered today at all? You can see this is a crazy looking thing. I like it to be like really organic and kind of crazy like this. If you filled this entire thing, this entire loom, then you have a nice crazy piece of cloth, and I think that makes a fun pillow. You could, if you didn't put this on it, you could make a bag. So any other questions?
General sort of yarn weaving question. Aline wants to know, what type of yarn or weight would you recommend if you're weaving a rug?
Pretty much anything. You just want to make sure. It depends on how you want it to look. Most rug yarn that I've seen tends to be kind of worsted weight, but I think the material is more important. Some of the wool that you can buy for rug yarn it's a very strong, long staple wool that will hold up under a lot of abuse. You wouldn't want to use something like this. This is wool, but you wouldn't want to use this for a rug because it's never going to hold up. Even this one, it's plied nicely, but it's plied so loose. I don't think that would hold up great for a rug that's going to get a lot of traffic. I would probably look for a yarn that was plied quite a bit tighter. So like this, the 24/7, you can see it's very smooth. And even though it's small, they do make thicker yarns that are plied very tight, but you can see it's plied very tight. You don't have a lot of fluff in it. What would you say, Claire? It's not really a yes or no answer for that, is there? Or a easy answer?
Yeah, I would probably make sure that it is like a tightly spun or tightly plied yarn, especially if it's going to be in a high traffic area. Think of like if it's maybe going to be like a kitchen or a bath rug, maybe a cotton, so you can wash it more often. If it's just a wool, like non-superwash treated, you'll have to hand wash it or like take it to a rug washing place. And then I would just caution too, if you are going to use it like on a wood or a tile floor, put like a rug pad underneath because it's going to be slippery. You
don't want it to slip.
Flying out.
No, especially if you have like children or older people in your home, because you don't want. My mother doesn't have any throw rugs down because she's afraid she'll fall on them now. She's getting older. But you can buy, if you go to the hardware stores, you can buy rug backing that's non-slip that should help with that. But again, I think the most important thing is to think of what the rug is going to be used for and where, and then decide on the type of yarn that's going to give you the best use for that. Thinking about how you want to wash it or how much hardware it's going to get. Does that, it's a shame there's like not, like, I can't say use worsted weight yarn, but there's not like, there's not an easy answer. Any other questions? Does that help? Does that make it more confusing?
Yeah, that helps, Lacey. Thank you. We have had a couple questions about how you would finish your piece and get it off the loom. So I think now's a good time to
Okay,
get to that.
it's a good time to get to that. So once you're finished, you take these out. You know what, I think I'm going to do it to this little one. I think I'll be able to demonstrate better on this little one. So once you're finished weaving, and maybe this is all you needed, maybe you just needed a little piece like this for a patch on something or whatever. You don't always have to be weaving some great big project. So, but you take these out, and then that gives you this nice, lots of space here to work. Save that space. Now, I do want to show you, I've got a separate little weaving up here. So if you made a great big loom, you could do two complete separate weavings. Like if you were making a pillow, you could do like a 6x6 square down here and a 6x6 square above it, all on the same warp. And then, you know, you've got both pieces made at the same time. You don't have to like rewarp your loom every time you're making something. Depending on, you know, if you have extra space on the loom, you can go ahead and fill in that space. So once you cut, because this edge is so strongly finished, you don't really need to do a hem stitch, but I'm going to show you the hem stitch. I don't do it very often, so I'm not great at it, but I'm going to show you the hem stitch. So I'm going to space these out a little better. And the hem stitch will give it a very strong finish. And then again, it always depends on what you're going to use this for. If this is going to be hung on the wall and nobody's really ever going to touch it, then you don't have to finish it quite so well. If it is going to be a rug in high traffic area, you want to make sure you're finishing it very well. You don't want the edges to come undone. So, but for the hem stitch, you go under two, and you want to go under two of your weft. So you go under two warp, and then under two weft. And you'll see why I probably wouldn't do this if I had a nice edge like this. It's going to kind of wrap around it. And then you go under the next two warp and under the next two weft. So you're always going 2 and 2. You can go deeper into your weaving if you feel like you need to for some reason, but usually 2 is enough. You could go up to 3 or 4 if you want, but you don't really have to. And so this is the hem stitch. And oh, I skipped one. So if I were really working on a project, I'd have to go back and pick that up. So you go under 2, and then you want your needle to go over your yarn from before, and then it's kind of like blanket stitch. Oops, I didn't do it right. So make sure you're kind of locking it through. Okay. Any questions about hem stitch? So under 2, and I always want to go under 2 and pull it through, but you don't want to pull it through. You want to go under 2 and then over, and then under 2 of your warp. And I don't do this very often. Most of my weavings are wall hangings, and I don't. It's kind of like when you're finishing, like knitting, like casting off is the last thing you do, and you only do it once each project, and it's hard to kind of do it, remember.
Yeah, like Darren said, this isn't a technique that you'll have to use, you know, very often on like a wall hanging, or if you've got that braid there, because you can see we're kind of covering it up.
Yeah.
But if you are doing weaving on like a rigid heddle loom or floor loom, this is a good technique. I would just say if you want to do it on both ends, you're going to have to make sure and do your first end of your scarf or your piece of fabric or whatever, do it before you start wrapping it around your beam, because you don't want to get to the end, realize you've forgotten, and have to unroll all of that.
And it's nice when you have a scarf if both ends are the same, maybe. Not always, but maybe. So
Maybe.
I'm just kind of taking this out because I don't usually do hem stitch, but I just wanted you guys to know about it, to see. And then again, taking it off the loom, there are a lot of different options depending on what you're using it for. If you were using it for a rug, you would want to make sure you're, again, securing it very, very strongly. If you're doing a wall hanging, it could be a little different, but I'm not going to cut this one because I'll probably use it for the next class. But depending on how your loom is, you can cut it. Just go ahead and cut the warp right there. If you have one of these kind where you've got all this warp on the back, you can cut it back here and give yourself a lot of warp. You can use this as a fringe. One thing you could do, I didn't mention at the beginning, you could prepare this loom. You could put these dents or these ridges on both sides, and then instead of wasting all this yarn, you could do a second weaving on the back. So, I mean, there's lots of options with this. You could then do a second weaving on the back, but all you really want to do is pretty much just cut these. And once you've cut them, you end up with a piece like this. And you might want to not cut them all at once. You might want to cut 2 or 3 and kind of tie them together and then cut the other ones. But I've cut this one all the way loose. And so I'm going to take 2 of these warps and I'm just going to tie them together. And then you can weave these in and hide them, kind of tuck them back up under, or you can let them hang as a fringe. So I'm going to tie these 2 together. So it kind of locks it in place. And you can also then, for extra security, if you want, tie these together. And you want to make sure you're not pulling it too tight because you're not trying to pull your piece in. I'm just doing a basic square knot. Nothing. Is there a fancy stitch for this, Claire, or just a knot? I'm just tying a knot.
You can get fancier with your fringe if you want. I know some people gather them in like small bundles and do an overhand knot. I think that's what it is. So like the knot is more of a feature of the fringe.
Yeah, I'm sure there are all kinds of decorative. There are all kinds of. I mean, you could put beads on them. You can add a. You can just do this to secure it, and then actually make like a tasseled fringe and put a tassel on each one of these. But the main thing you want to make sure you're doing is you want to make sure you're securing it so that it doesn't unravel. And again, depending on what you're using this for, you might have to secure it better than others. And then another thing you can do is, so this is the front, I've got this on the front, and then this is the back. And you can see here, I've got some hem stitch there from before I was demonstrating. I've got my row of twining, I have my tabby, and then I have another row of twining down there. And they're kind of decorative, but if you just did these in like a plain black or a plain white or something, what you do then is you can fold it under and then sew it down. And then the back of your rug, you're going to have this beautiful salvage edge that's very nice and very well done. And it's going to make a very finished, very professional looking project. And then you can just sew that down. You can whip stitch it down or just securely sew it down by hand. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And then on the front, you're not going to see it. But it's giving you a very, very strong edge because you've got all of these strong stitches and then you've got it sewn down and you have your warp. And then that way you don't have to sew these in. You can kind of just tuck them under, hide them in there, and then sew them down. How do you do it, Claire? Do you ever do that, or what would you do?
No, I usually leave my fringe, and then I might do. Annette was saying in the chat, you could, put them in groups and then separate those groups and tie like half of each group together, so you get sort of like a little lacy diamond style pattern.
Yeah, that's really cute. I've seen that. That would be very. There's so many so many. We could go over as many as we can think of and then bring in a different group of people and they'd come up with that many more probably. There's so many options, so many great ideas. So, but that's pretty much it. You can leave these long and you could tie these onto like a curtain rod or something and hang it if you have a nice big wall hanging. I mean, so many ways of finishing it, but these are just a few suggestions. And just with these stitches that we talked about is all I used on this pillow. So do we want to switch back to the front camera so you can, I can show you a few other things. Is it switched back? I'm never sure when it's switching. Okay.
Yep, there you
So,
go.
on this pillow, that's all I did was just those stitches. And I just added this decorative fringe on the bottom. And I just used yarns with all different, I just used scrap yarns. I used all different textures of yarns. See, this red is the twining. I just did it with red. And then I was able to kind of push it up and make the zigzag pattern. And then I filled it in with 2 different colors. Kind of, it looks very complicated, but it's not, right? It's super easy, but you might think it, it looks harder than it is. Like most things, it looks harder than it really is. So yeah, and it looks like I know a whole bunch of crazy stitches when really only using like 4 stitches in this whole thing. This one this is the tapestry loom that I bought. And I have a project on here I started. I started it around Easter, so it's a rabbit. But if you want to do a picture, this is one way that I do it is I just kind of sketch out my picture and I just tape it to the back of the loom. And then I just follow it as I'm going. And then after I'm finished, some people like this, but I'm gonna do like an embroidery. I'm gonna do a chain stitch and kind of make that line a little bit straighter. So after I'm done with it, I'm gonna do like an embroidery chain stitch to kind of clean it up. So even after you're done weaving, you can add other hobbies and other skills you have to make it even more embellished. So, and see, I made a real fluffy tail in the back and I used the loops for the grass. So, and then basically all this is just tabby. It's just all tabby weave for the most part. So, but with this one, then you don't have the strings on the back. What you end up with are these, you have little hooks. I don't know if you can see, but they're little hooks right here. These are little hooks. And they go around the hook and then back up to the top. So instead of wrapping around the loom, you're wrapping it around that little hook. And this one wasn't cheap. This one was maybe $60 or $80. It has a built-in easel, so it stands on a table. But again, you certainly don't have to invest in an expensive loom. You can make the ones on a cardboard and they work just as well. Anything else? Any questions at all? I'm glad to answer any questions. I'm never sure how it's coming across.
I'm going to go ahead and put our handouts in the chat in case you need those again. We've got one for how to make the cardboard loom and then one for your tapestry weaving basics. And just a reminder, of course, that we were recording this class. So if you missed a part, you need to go back and watch it again. That'll be up on the Michael's YouTube channel on Monday.
And if at any time you might think you don't have any questions, but then once you start doing it, you might run into questions. That's usually when the questions happen. You can feel free to send me a direct message either on Instagram or on Facebook. And on Facebook, it's just my name spelled out just the way it is, and you'll see my picture. And on Instagram, maybe Claire will put it in the chat. It's my screen name is Mr. M-I-S-T-E-R spelled out, Mr. Woolly Bear. So just search that. Again, you'll see my picture. Send me a direct message with whatever questions you have. And I don't get many questions. I'll respond as quick as I can and be as helpful as I can. So I hate to think of you out there kind of stuck and with no one to turn to. So yeah, just feel free to send any questions you have. So, anything else, Claire?
Well, since we've got you all captive here, I'll tell you about our other upcoming classes. We've got some more coming towards the end of this month. We'll be back on October 24th. That's a Monday. We're going to be teaching you how to do some tassels. That's a new class for us. So we're going to do some simple ones and then some fun layered ones so you can decorate for all the holidays. And then on October 31st, we're going to be having a special spooky crochet lace class as we work on the Nadia shawl. If any of you are fans of What We Do in the Shadows, it's inspired by the character from that.
Big fan. I love that show.
And then in November, we are going to be doing our Learn to Knit series. So if you are just a general fiber crafter or a crocheter and you want to learn how to knit, come join us for those. Those will be 3 Mondays starting November 7th.
Or if you're a knitter and you just need a review, maybe there's a few things you don't understand, it's a great review. All right, so don't forget to practice. That's when the learning happens. And just let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for coming to class. Happy I Love Yarn Day.